In one of the more entertaining and competitive matchups of week 4, TCU and SMU go head to head in what has been an entertaining series over the last few years. You've had explosive offenses, you've had back and forth battles, and both teams have won some games that made you turn your head. And I think that we're in store for another great game, another exciting game. And both of these teams have a little bit extra chip on their shoulder and extra motivation to win this one. And we'll start with the offenses. Obviously, when you have Sonny Dykes and Rhett Lashley going back and forth, you're going to have a lot of points. You will have a lot of exciting plays, and these offenses continue to do that. And it comes down to which offense essentially blinks first, it feels like. Both defenses have talent, but so far we've seen that they're not exactly elite at slowing teams down. I think that they can at certain points, but it just comes down to which team is able to create a turnover, which offense is making the first mistake. So that's the biggest thing. Both these offenses are really fun to watch. I think when you look at the leadership they have calling the plays, and then you look at the quarterbacks running the show, these are two offenses that have bright futures. And right now, it's just a matter of which one can handle the pressure the most. This is also a rivalry game, so cooler heads must prevail for both sides. With the news that this series will be discontinued in 2025, you know that both teams will be chippy. If you watch what Colorado and Colorado State did last week, you will see a similar type of chippiness, trash talk, rivalry in this game. Now, biggest thing is that's fine. If you want to be competitive and you want to do that kind of stuff, that's okay. But if you're costing your team yards and then eventually costing your team points, that's going to get on the nerve of both coaches. Yes, this game is important. And yes, it's important to send a message, but you have to be able to do that intelligently. You cannot take pointless penalties and you cannot make dumb mistakes that will cost your team this game. So that will be a big key for both sides. I think there's plenty of star power to be utilized. You look at the quarterbacks in Preston Stone and Chandler Morris, but I think there's two guys that really step up and are going to be a focus of both of these sides. Jordan Hudson having a good year so far, averaging 21.8 yards per catch. Imani Bailey, 357 yards. He is an absolute star for this TCU offense. And that those are just two guys. There's so many players that both offenses can utilize. There's so many players that these offenses will find and rely on when this game is going on. These offenses have plenty of depth. They have plenty of weapons, and it's just a matter of getting those guys the football. Because once you do that, both defenses are in for a long day, and the depth is really what helps. Just because you have one or two guys doesn't mean that guys 3, 4, and 5 can't make big plays. They have so many explosive playmakers on both sides, and these defenses are in for a long night. But taking care of the football is going to be the biggest thing, like we said. Turnovers haven't been great. It's not awful, but they haven't been great for these two teams. Currently, both negative in turnover margin. Finding a way to take care of the football and creating turnovers of your own will probably be a big key in determining this outcome. Again, I think both teams can score at an amazing clip. It's just a matter of which defense is able to step up. And one thing that I'll note coming into the season, I said that SMU's defense once again needed to take a step forward. And not here's the thing. The loss to Oklahoma wasn't great, but they gave up less than 30 points. And right now Oklahoma is running through pretty much everybody else. So maybe this defense is able to take that step forward. Maybe this defense can finally be an impact unit that they need them to be, and that could be the difference in winning and losing this game. Now, when you look at the quarterback position, we talked about them a little bit already. Preston Stone and Chandler Morris. These are two guys that are essentially starting for the first time for an entire year. Chandler Morris obviously started the first game against Colorado last year, but then got hurt. Preston Stone has played in a few games coming into this year, but didn't start. Preston Stone has a lot to prove because he's the more unproven player, but Chandler Morris isn't light years ahead of him in terms of experience. Both guys are really fun to watch. You'd like to see them complete a little bit more in terms of passes and be able to hit their playmakers because both have a number of playmakers that you can utilize, you can get the football to, and they can do a ton of damage. They both also are able to utilize their feet. You won't see it as much because you want to see them healthy. I think the injury concerns for Chandler Morris from last year are maybe factoring in how this team calls this offense. You don't essentially need him to be a feature in the rushing attack either. When you have Trey Sanders and Imani Bailey, you are fine in the rushing attack. You have plenty of wide receivers to utilize too. JP Richardson, you have Jared Wiley, you have so many different players that can make an impact in that passing attack too. They have so many different formations they can utilize. Sonny Dykes' offense is so good, and so is Rhett Lashley's. Basically, you're putting two quarterbacks that at worst need to be game managers and just need to not make mistakes. And so far, they combined for 5 interceptions. So there is something they can improve upon. There is something that they can get better at. And honestly, it's not bad to be a game manager in these types of offenses. Yes, eventually you have to make a big throw. And yes, eventually you have to step up and prove that you can be a reliable playmaker in clutch moments. But to get things started, don't try to be a hero. Maybe you take a shot here and there when the coaches tell you, but get in rhythm, find a way to get your playmakers involved, get everyone else in rhythm, and then from there you're pretty much set for the rest of the game to work with that confidence that you've built. And when you look at the players that you can use, it's easy to see why they should be game managers. For Preston Stone, Jordan Hudson has been a great addition coming from TCU last year, joining the SMU Mustangs. There are so many other guys. The rushing attack appears to be good with Jalen Knighton and LJ Johnson. You're looking at a rushing attack that will be really fun to watch. This offensive line has a number of returning playmakers that will be able to open running lanes and keep Preston Stone upright. It's just on Preston Stone to make those plays happen, get his playmakers the football. Then on defense, Jonathan McGill and Elijah Roberts were two of the best additions for SMU. They're already yielding huge dividends for that defense. And this is a defense that appears to have taken a step, but this is a big test for them against TCU. For the Horned Frogs, we talked about Imani Bailey, what he can do. He's such a good runner, a great compact frame that allows him to absorb hits and be able to keep moving downfield. That will be huge for this offense. When you need some tough yards, when it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, any of those yardage that's short, he will be able to pick up some yards and he can also make big plays. That's something to keep an eye on as well. The defense is really where you need to see something improve. The first week against Colorado was a disaster. This is a team that, I mean, last week they held Houston to 13 points, but Houston's an absolute disaster. But that doesn't mean there's not talent. There's plenty of talent on this defense. It's just a matter of how can you slow down an explosive offense? Because SMU can score points in a hurry. They have weapons that can compete at the Power Five level. And that's going to be a difficult task for this defense. For TCU to be able to slow down SMU offense gives their offense more opportunities to score points and pick up the pace of the game. Both teams can play at a blistering pace. They can play at light speed if they need to. Well, whichever defense, like we mentioned before, makes a turnover or gets the ball back to their offense with a 3-and-out, somehow, some way, steal a possession, get the ball back to your offense, and you will be in good hands. Picking this game, this is as tight, I think, as this series has ever been. And it comes down really to the quarterback play. Right now, TCU is really explosive, but it feels like they're still trying to figure something out. And not that I have more confidence in SMU, but I think that the fact that their defense looks like they're better shows me that maybe they have a better chance than most people realize. So if you're going to pick one, I'm leaning towards SMU. I think that they can get the job done. They'll pull out a close one. It's not going to be a blowout by any means. And I think that Preston Stone and that defense get the job done.